Hey, what's up, everybody? This is Charles, and welcome you guys to another episode of the Dreamerspro Show, where we cover everything from sports, hot topics, classic debates, entertainment, and where we give you guys a fresh perspective on things and how we see them. And in today's episode, the topic is the mysterious reason the media's turned on the Clippers. So that's the topic I'm going to get into in today's video. But before we get into that, I want you guys to please make sure you go ahead and hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, and hit the notification bell to be notified whenever we drop our content. Also, make sure you check out Dreamerspro Max, an online sports community, a place where you can go and start basketball discussions, chat live during games, which we'll be doing all throughout the playoffs. So many other cool things. So if you guys are interested in that, be sure to check that out. We have that linked in the description below and get 7 days of access. Also, make sure you go ahead and click the join button to join the channel to receive loyalty badges and ensure whenever you leave a comment when we go live, we respond to it. So make sure you go ahead and do that. Anyway, let me get into this topic here because this has been a very interesting 48 hours or so of sports. Very, 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 very interesting. Now, listen, for the most part, what the media likes to do, and we're part of the media as well. What the media likes to do is we tend to say that we're fair, fair and balanced. That's what the media generally likes to portray itself, right? But what I witnessed yesterday made me begin to think otherwise, because what I saw yesterday was unlike anything I have ever seen in sports media before. Now, maybe this is something that's been happening in the past, and maybe just now that we're covering it closely that we're beginning to notice these things. Maybe, this is something that's, it's par for the course. But what I witnessed yesterday in the 2 years of covering basketball, I can't think back to a time before, and at least in these last 2 years, that I've seen anything like this before. Now, listen, the Clippers decided to do something about a few days ago by throwing their the remaining 2 games of the season. Now, when they threw that first game to Houston, I came out and said, listen, wait a minute. What are they trying to pull here? Because I noticed by the players that they didn't have playing, Kawhi and all these guys, Paul George and all these guys, I said, wait a minute, are they trying to move in the seedings, in the brackets? Because I'm like, it doesn't make any sense. Why aren't you playing your players? You have a week to rest them. So what would be the purpose of doing this? Now, when that was taking place, ladies and gentlemen, let me just quickly say this for the people that don't do any research, that just walk around regurgitating, just parroting what everybody else is saying. When the Clippers had those last 2 games in the regular season, the Lakers were the number 7 seed. Let me repeat it for the people out there. They were the 7th seed. They were the 7th seed, not the 6th seed. When the Clippers were the 3 seed, the Lakers were the 7th seed. They were resting LeBron inexplicably. And at one point, I was asking myself, is LeBron not coming back? Is he trying to go into the play-in tournament? This is when the Clippers were sitting handsomely in the 3 seed, okay? They were there for a good while now, while LeBron and these guys were missing games, and LeBron and AD missed the game together. And I was like, are these guys serious about getting into the number 6 seed? While you guys are sitting up there talking with your slick selves, the Lakers had every opportunity to be the number 3, to be the number 6 seed. They didn't seize it. So when I said that the Clippers were making a move for themselves, they were not thinking about the Lakers whatsoever. So the Clippers decided to drop that game, and I said, wait a minute, could it be that they're trying to get to the other side of the bracket to try to get a smoother path to the finals? And then ultimately in the last game against the Oklahoma City Thunder, that's exactly what they did. And the Denver Nuggets did the exact same thing, but it was too late, and Portland won out and kept the Lakers out. I think you guys don't understand that the Lakers needed a better record than Portland because Portland had the tiebreaker. Did y'all know that? I don't think y'all knew that. Okay, good. Then yesterday, what happens on the media after, the media, when the Clippers made that decision? Literally every single media member that I can think of came out and said that the Clippers are whatever doing that to avoid the Lakers. And I was like, what? But you won't believe the amount of people that came out. It wasn't just 1 or 2. So before we go too far, I want you guys to take a listen to a compilation in no particular order of what key media people were saying yesterday about the Clippers. So before we go too far, take a listen to this audio right here and listen to them talking about the Clippers.
Well, you can accuse them of tanking. I'm going to convict them of tanking. But we see teams tank at the end of the season all the time. That's not, the end of the world. A lot of teams have. What they did here is make moves to avoid the Lakers in round 1 and round 2. And, we may be sitting here in 2 months and say, boy, what a genius move. It was good strategy for how it set up the bracket. But boy, does it send a strange message to your team, and it certainly sent a message to the Lakers.
The Los Angeles Clippers should be ashamed of themselves. And you know it has to be something big if it should bring shame to that franchise. An organization that's never even made it to a conference finals in 50 years. But this weekend, the Clippers did it. They managed to bring new shame all upon themselves because they went out and lost on purpose to the Houston Rockets and Oklahoma City Thunder, two of the sorriest teams in the NBA this past season. Dropped both games. Sat Kawhi Leonard and Paul George for both. Yesterday, sat Rajon Rondo, Nicholas Batum, and Marcus Morris too, claiming they were resting them for the playoffs. Even though the Clippers get to rest through the whole play-in round. Even though Kawhi Leonard rests all season with his load management nonsense. How much rest do y'all need exactly? But we all know the real reason the Clippers have players sitting out. We all know, right? It's because they want to get out of having to play LeBron and the Los Angeles Lakers in the first round of the playoffs. By losing 2 games this weekend, the Clippers dropped to 4th seed in the West, meaning there was no way they could get the Lakers in the first round if the Lakers managed to avoid the play-in and get that 6th seed.
And I decided to take that route. I was like, oh, Kawhi's playing more. I love Ty Lue. Ibaka, when healthy, potentially positive addition. Oh, the Clippers. They're a real contender this year. And no, they're not. And they know they're not. And that's why they did what was one of the most embarrassing, and as a pro athlete, I would have to imagine mortifying 36 hours of basketball I've ever seen.
Chris, so the Clippers appear so terrified of the Lakers that they tanked to Houston and Oklahoma City so they don't have to play the Lakers. I'm not the only one that noticed that, right? Like, that's real. That's what happened this weekend, right?
It is real. All right? It's real. I've talked to people. It's real. And it is weak. I mean, the Clippers just keep disappointing me.
Now, if you listen to them, the general talking point is the Clippers did that to avoid the Lakers. That was the whole thing. Now, here are a few facts for you guys that truly believe that. Do y'all know that the Clippers are 3-0 against the Lakers this season? Do y'all know that they beat them at full strength on opening night and all? Are y'all fully aware of this? I hope you guys are. The Clippers they already beat the Lakers 3 times this season. Number one, if the Clippers won those last 2 games, let me repeat it for the geniuses out there that feel like they're saying something enlightening. Do y'all still know that still wouldn't guarantee that the Lakers play the Clippers in round 1? I think, again, you guys don't understand how the seedings were working. For the Lakers to make it to the 6th seed, it had nothing to do with what the Clippers were doing. It had everything to do with what Portland was doing. Portland was the one that was holding them out. I'll give you guys a short story very quickly before I continue. I remember once my late grandfather, he was teaching me how to spell when I was very young. And he was giving me some words. He was testing me. And he asked me to spell a word. And I spelt the word. And I thought the spelling I gave was correct. So when I finished spelling, I was celebrating. I was like, ha ha ha, I got it right. And he was looking at me with a very stoic face and he goes, wrong. While I was there celebrating, I can't tell you how stupid I felt. Still remember that to this day. I was a kid. Must have been 7, 8 years old, 9 years old. Still remember it to this day. That's exactly how I'm looking at your comments. Y'all feel like y'all are saying something, but you're saying nothing. You really feel, a lot of these guys truly believe what they're saying, and you're saying nothing. You're saying nothing. Nothing. So the Clippers already beat them. And if it is true that Kawhi, think about how ludicrous the notion is. That the Clippers, so basically you're telling me Kawhi Leonard looked at LeBron and was afraid? Think about what? So if Kawhi was afraid of facing LeBron in play, why didn't he just go join him when he was a free agent? Of course you guys never thought of that because you don't think. That's why. Obviously Kawhi's not afraid. But what I was astonished about was just the power of this herd mentality. It's amazing. The media comes out, they say something, and people just run around with it. They don't think, oh, it's true. I told you, it was a weak move. I told you. I'm like, what are you talking about? Not even looking at how the playoffs, the logistics work. You don't even know what you're talking about. Most of you that are leaving these comments, you don't know what you're talking about. But you felt like you did. Y'all felt like y'all were enlightening me. You weren't. And I know it must bother some people. It really must. Y'all are running around with Colin Cowherd, and this one is saying, listen, Nick Wright was saying, do you know that Nick Wright just about a week ago said he didn't feel confident if the Clippers play the Lakers in round 1? That's Nick Wright for you. Talking out of both sides of his mouth. And this is the guy you guys run around and quote? This the guy just a week ago. He said he didn't feel confident in them facing the Lakers in round 1 because they weren't fully healthy and all of this. That's what he said just a week ago. And then yesterday, he told on himself in an indirect way. He said, you would have thought that the Clippers would want to play the Lakers when they had not peaked, when they had not really gotten into a rhythm. That's a roundabout way of saying when the Lakers run at their best. That's the reason he said that. Max Kellerman came out and said a few days ago, although he didn't come out and say the Clippers are afraid, at least I didn't hear him. He said the Lakers don't want to play the Clippers in round 1. That's not the matchup that they want. Did it ever occur to some of you guys that maybe the Lakers were trying to avoid the Clippers? What a thought. What a thought. What a notion. Did it ever occur to you guys that when LeBron was missing games left and right, that maybe they were aiming for the play-in tournament? Did it ever occur to you guys when they sat both AD and LeBron with 3 games left in the season in that game? Didn't you guys ponder that? So that's not plausible. But this is. I think it's, it just shows me the power of the media and the way it can shape opinions. And if this is what it does in sports, imagine what it does in politics. Imagine what it does. Imagine what it does. Literally, people submit their ability to reason to others. They don't think. They allow others to do the thinking for them. And then they come out there and then just start parroting what they say. I've never seen anything like this. But my biggest question is this before we close. Didn't you think it was unusual that every media person, regardless of network, had the same talking point? Don't y'all think that's a little bit strange? How is it possible? Brian Windhorst, Colin Cowherd, Stephen A. Smith, Nick Wright, all of them, they arrived at the same conclusion. How is it possible? Are they monolithic? Are they monolithic? Is the media monolith? I thought these guys are different personalities. Y'all have different names, so why y'all all saying the same thing? How is it all of you are reasoning the same way? How? If you watch that clip of Stephen A. Smith, he was reading from a teleprompter. Who wrote that for you? Who wrote that for you? Why wasn't that your first reaction when it came out? Go look at Skip Bayless. He had a raw reaction on his Instagram. He had a complete different reaction. What is going on? So many questions. And this is the media we live. This is the sports world we live in. And the saddest part is a lot of you guys thought that what y'all were saying was enlightening. When in reality you didn't know what you were talking about. And I can tell by the comments, and most of you guys don't do any research. I'm sure the majority of you guys weren't even following the brackets. I'm sure if we sat down, the majority of you and asked us to explain how would the brackets work, how did the seedings work, what do you think the strategy of these seeds, none of you would have an answer. None of you. Not none of you, a good majority of you. But yet, y'all were so confident. Oh, the Clippers. Hear what you're saying. Hear what you're saying. Hear what you're saying. So that was my thoughts on it. What I want to know from you guys is, what do you think? And the operative word here is think. Catch you guys on the next episode.